Hello again. It's not easy to talk about having visions of Jesus because of the ridicule heaped upon those who say this has happened to them. Well, I had two visions of Jesus trying to save me from the Great White Brotherhood about a year before I was at the headquarters and the transfiguration of the founder took place. That made absolutely plain to me that I was involved in something that I shouldn't have been. When I became a member, when I became an outer brother of the Brotherhood, I immediately developed psychic abilities. My wife used to take the children to church every Sunday morning, and I used to tidy up the house and get the roast beef and Yorkshire pud ready for their return. One morning I heard a voice whilst I was vacuuming, so I switched it off, and I thought the radio was on, and anyway it wasn't. So this happened quite a few Sunday mornings until I decided to concentrate on what this voice was saying to me, and I found it was telling children's stories, and quite nice they were too. So I started to write down these stories, and eventually bought a tape recorder so that I could tape the words as I thought. I was losing some of the beauty in the writing down and from memory. Well, the first this was to start a trance-mediumship that was to last until the transfiguration of the founder. It started with, I found myself in a vision seeing the four apostles carrying the 4 volumes of the Book of Life, and they were making their way down a perilous steep track down a cliff, and they entered a cave where they proceeded to dig a large hole and bury the books, and they then returned, climbed the cliff, and off they went. Well, as they disappeared, an earthquake happened and the cliff collapsed, covering the cave and making certain that the Book of Life would never ever be discovered. And I was told at this point that this earthquake happened at the precise moment that Jesus gave up his life on the cross. Later in vision I found myself in a dark place, possibly like a dark cave. There was an altar with the golden Book of Life opened at a page that read the age of Aquarius, and I was told that in every age just one soul is chosen to read from the page of that age. And I commenced copying out everything that I saw and that I read, and this went on for several weeks, and this message was supposed to be handed to the human Great White Brotherhood to help them serve the purposes of the Master, as I was told. And well, of course, I was told that I was a chosen one, and that kind of flattered me for a moment, but then I thought, why me? You see, I always retained my scepticism, even though I was investigating. So therefore, I was so immersed in the occult at this point. How was it possible that Jesus would come and save me, his enemy, as I was then? Well, what I have to say next is the real miracle of everything that happened. Whilst I was still copying out from the Book of Life, I used to go down to the healer's house who'd saved my father, and we would enter into meditation and afterwards describe our experiences with the Great White Brotherhood spirits. On this particular Sunday morning, I envisioned I was listening to the teacher of the New Age, a lovely green meadow and blue skies and sun, and the teacher was teaching under a tree with a group of brothers cross-legged on the ground listening to him, and I was one of them. Well, I suddenly found myself rising up out of this group of brothers until I could look down and see them below, and I went up through the clouds, and to my absolute astonishment there was Jesus. He was larger than me, and he appeared to be behind an altar table of some description, so I couldn't see the lower part of his body, but he smiled and handed me a double-handled chalice for me to drink from the cup of life. Well, I knew what this would entail. My instinct told me, and I shook my head and immediately fell down with a terrific bump into the group below. You see, remember that I'm experiencing this vision of Jesus within the vision of being with the Great White Brotherhood. Well, a short time later, the whole process was repeated. I rose up into the realms, through the realms until I found myself before Jesus. Once again, he offered a cup of life, but I couldn't see me giving up my then lifestyle. And once again, I shook my head and again fell with a bone-shattering crash into the group of brothers below, listening to the teacher of the New Age. No, I can't understand now how I could have been so stupid and arrogant in refusing the Lord. The web of chains that is woven around souls by this brotherhood is very strong. The enslaved soul is rewarded by the satisfaction of personal desires. Too late it discovers it is actually being consumed and lost forever. When I awoke from the trance, the healer was looking at me with concern and expectation. You've been very far away, he said. What happened? Well, I was in such a state of shock, I just couldn't tell him, and I made my way home, went to bed and stayed there quite ill for 2 weeks. I was off work for 2 weeks, and I couldn't tell anyone, my wife included, what had happened to me. The shock of all the Bible stories that I'd been told as a child and that I hadn't believed then had suddenly come true. Well, time dimmed the memory, and I kept on with my work for the Brotherhood, and another year was to elapse before in desperation I cried out to God, in whom I had once more did not then believe in, to save me. But well, my spiritual and personal lives were intermingled with conflicting desires and aspirations. This started the personal crucifixion of my soul, with Jesus pulling on one side and Satan pulling on the other, which I've described previously in Being Born Again. This all happened about 1 year before the transfiguration of the founder in the initiation test, and this is why, because Jesus had appeared to me twice seeking to redeem me, and I'd refused, that when the spirit snake appeared I knew how and who to cry out to, and the only one who could save me, and very blessed am I that he did. So that concludes this further talk about my experiences. Thank you very much for watching once more. Thank you.